I'll get started and you start when you need to, Ray.
All
We've had a
right.
lot of requests about people wanting to know about the newest open source alternative, BoxLang. And we're glad Ray was able to present. He's been doing a few presentations on BoxLang related stuff if you follow his blog, and I'll let him take it away.
Cool. Thank you. And again, I apologize for any cumbersomeness, etc. Uh, Brand new hardware. I actually have a presentation for a job application coming soon, so I'm really kind of happy to shake to shake the bugs out here in more of a low-key environment. Are y'all seeing my screen okay?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Getting started with BoxLang. I assume y'all know me, but you may be watching the recording. I am Raymond Camden. I am a developer evangelist and advocate. Currently looking for my new role. Hopefully, we'll have that filled sometime soon. And I am blogging at Raymond Camden. And on my blog, you can find out how to reach me and ask questions about what I'm sharing today. And I'm definitely, absolutely happy to talk more about BoxLang. So drop me a line. I do not mind. If you want a copy of this presentation, you can take your camera to your computer screen or just copy and paste that. Whenever I get done with the formal deck and all that, I can also copy and paste that into the chat. In the repo, you'll find a couple different decks. I actually think this one's not in the repository yet, but I will push it up when we're done. But the demos and stuff you will be able to find and download and play with. So my basic idea today is to tell you what boxlaying is, tell you why you should care about a new language in 2025, and more importantly, spend a lot of time talking about the how, like how you actually work with this, how you get stuff done. So in terms of what it is a lightweight dynamically, loosely typed language. So if you're used to Cold Fusion, if you're used to JavaScript, then this should all make sense to you. The lightweight, the 6 megabytes apart, may be a bit of a surprise. It is incredibly small, built on the JVM, so it runs anywhere. Up until a couple days ago, I was primarily Windows only. Now I'm Mac only, and zero issue at all, working with BoxLang in my on my new laptop versus the old one. So yes, it does run everywhere. It is shockingly extensible. I don't have a lot of time to talk about how extensible it is. Like that could be a couple hours. But in terms of, yes, it's a very cool language, and hopefully you'll see that. But the ability to get in there and tweak and modify and just like low level access is like just incredible. It's unlike anything I have ever seen. Python a bit, but this really, really goes deep. And you can replace Cold Fusion and Lucy installs via a module that I'll talk about later. You can just drop your CF code. When I got into BoxLang, I was not coming at it from a Cold Fusion perspective. To me, it was just, I'm going to learn this new language. I'm going to help, evangelize it a bit and talk a bit about it. I don't really do the let me put Cold Fusion on it and make it run. But you can do that if that's what you want to do. It is 100% open source. You can look at the Jira system like I have. I have an email notification, so I see everything that changes. You can contribute to it and so forth. And it is free, as in completely free. Now, in terms of what it does, it is a language platform. So you could build CLI applications. You can also build serverless functions. It is a powerful web application and framework baked into it. And I know this crowd is primarily Cold Fusion based, so you're kind of already used to that. But if you come at this from the Node.js or Python perspective, typically you have to bring in an additional framework. And there's great Node.js web frameworks and Python web frameworks, but within BoxLang, it's actually baked into it, which is pretty darn nice. Now, it is free and open source. Of course, Ortus, the company behind this, they need to make money. So you can get additional support if you pay for it. There's also going to be some modules that are going to be premium that you do have to pay for. And they have various different options. I'm not paying for it myself, so I can't comment on it, but it's kind of the typical open source thing of if you want additional support and help, you can pay for it with a couple of the modules being commercial. And to be clear, if you see one of those modules that are commercial and you don't want to pay for it, you're welcome to try to write it yourself. Like you don't have to use the commercial modules if you don't want to. If you want more information about it, you can go to boxlang.io/plans and look at that. What's coming out soon? There's no official BoxLang admin now, although Luis on Facebook like 3 hours ago shared like a teaser picture of it, and they've talked about the BoxLang admin coming soon. It's going to be an Electron app, and what's cool is that it's actually going to be a BoxLang application wrapped in Electron. And so, from what I know, they're going to teach us actually how to build desktop applications using BoxLang, which I think is really darn cool. And of course, they've been adding more and more modules. I'll be showing that webpage, and they've added like 2 modules in the last week, which is pretty cool. So why, obviously, rapid application development? This part's a little bit soapbox-ish, it's religion, etc., philosophical. If you need to build rapidly on multiple platforms, then this is something that you're looking for. Now, it's also with the language that's like 1 year old, it's really missing a lot of the cruft that you see in older languages. JavaScript, I love JavaScript. I've used it forever, enjoy using it. It definitely has some really rough, weird edges to it that you will not see in BoxLang. So in terms of how, like most JVM-based languages, you have to install the JDK. For me, on my new laptop, I had to Google how to do JDK on Mac OS, and that took about 5 minutes. You grab the binaries. You can optionally install the IDE in Visual Studio Code. And once you've done that, you will get a couple of CLIs. BoxLang is the core CLI tool. It is a REPL, so you can actually test expressions and lines of code in it. I primarily only use it to execute BoxLang scripts. You get another one, install BX module. This is how you will add modules to the system. You get BoxLang Mini Server, which is a very powerful, lightweight web application. And that's primarily the way that I test BoxLang web apps. And you have a CLI to help you install newer versions of BoxLang. You can go to the docs to see more. I'll also point out that they've recently, in the last couple of months, also added a tool called BVM, which is BoxLang Version Manager. And if you're used to NVM in the node space, if you need to install multiple different versions of BoxLang and run multiple different versions of BoxLang for client work and so forth, BVM lets you manage that. On my old laptop, I use BVM. On this new laptop, I've only just installed BoxLang once, so that's the way I'm rolling right now. So going forward, you should obviously carefully read the docs, ensure you understand everything, and then carefully write your first file, or you can just be like me and we can just go crazy. And I'll show you one file. And let me, oh, PowerPoint. This is why I don't use you as much. Okay, so for those of you in the room, I know my display is a little bit stretched, but can you read that text? Is it readable?
Yep, everything looks good here.
All right. Yeah, it looks very stretchy to me, but the text looks okay, so I'll trust it. So this is an hello world BoxLang file written in some tags. If I do BoxLang hello world.bxm, I'm going to get hello Ray. And literally that's how I do most of my testing. So as I did carefully read the docs, I would create a script and I would just run it from the CLI. Really, really appreciate it. I understand, I believe Cold Fusion recently or at some point added a CLI. When I do CF work, I still put it under a web server and do it like that. I really, really love the flexibility of being able to run directly from the terminal because I'll do most of my testing that way. So let's get back to I'm still learning my keyboard combinations. I apologize. All right. Get back to showing, please. Thank you. All right. So in terms of the language features, and this is not going to be an exhaustive list, like I'm not going to tell you it supports math because that's kind of a given. I'm going to try to focus on the things that you may not expect or the things that you may be concerned about. Obviously, very deep integration with Java. I have a couple examples that show that in action. It has full OO. I will be honest, 20 plus years of writing Cold Fusion CFCs, I kept my OO pretty light. Like I would build a CFC that was a collection of related methods. I rarely did interfaces or inheritance or abstract classes. I'm happy it's there. BoxLang has that as well. So if you want to build that level of complexity, you can do that. It has both closures and pure functions. And again, you'll see a couple of examples of that while I work. Immutable classes. Again, I know what that is. I've never used it. Interceptors for the language. I talked earlier about how BoxLang lets you get into the internals. Interceptors is part of that, and it is stupid, insane, deep, such that you could do things like, hey, every time a HTTP call is made on the server, I want to run this custom logic and do whatever. So I have done some kind of basic work on a basic BoxLang web debugger, and the way it works is via interceptor. So I intercept a template loading so that I can record how much time it takes. I intercept queries so I could see how long it took and how many records it returned. And I intercept network calls as well. And again, the language gives you the tools to build that, which I just freaking love so much. Case insensitive because that's sensible. It supports human operators as well as the, I guess, non-human and pipe, etc. But you could use and or. Includes member functions as well. So you'll, much like Cold Fusion, you'll see a lot of like fully written out functions, but with your types, you can also call member functions on them. Mostly optional semicolons. The docs talk about where it's required. My strongest advice is to just always use semicolons. In fact, I ran into something about a month or so ago where the lack of semicolons ended up breaking some code. So I will tell you, they say it's mostly optional. I would just throw the semicolons in there. You can do multi-line strings. Expression and interpolation is just a fancy way of saying a string can include variables in it. Again, from the Cold Fusion world, we're used to that. In Node and Python, you can do that, but you have to do something special, like a template string, for example, in JavaScript. This is just kind of baked in to BoxLang. You could do tag islands. I'm not a fan of it, but I do have a demo of there in case you want to see it. There is a stupid, robust caching system. I keep saying stupid because that's my way of saying like they give you so many different tools and it's just so refreshing for the language. It's just like the default to being so open. So caching, I've done a little bit of work with, but it gets incredibly deep and complex if you need that type of thing. Array sets are at once because that makes sense. I will die on that hill. Going further, talking about types, so what you would expect, array struct string numeric datetime, also query file and XML query. Again, it's a cold fusionism, but I find it to be incredibly useful. List as well, another Cold Fusion thing that has been so practical. I wish more languages would kind of steal that functionality, but there's so many times where, like, oh, I have a file name and I want to get the extension, and list last just works perfectly for that. There's so many times where I wish I've had that type of functionality within my language. You can look at the docs to see a full list of types, but again, I wanted to cover what I thought were the more interesting aspects. Keep on looking at language features, and again, I'm not covering everything. Um, some of the functionality is exposed as components. This is probably the only part that kind of tripped me up. So I had expected a HTTP function, but it's actually a component instead. And I should call that a class, really. Mail is the same thing as well. So it's not like a mail function, it's a BX mail call instead with the bracket functionality. From the Cold Fusion world, you're kind of used to that. If you're not coming from Cold Fusion, syntax is a little bit different at first, but you get used to it. In terms of scopes, and these will change based on how you're running BoxLang. So you have a variable scope, which gives you access to every variable that's been created in the current context. You have server, which is the entire server. You have web framework ones that are only applicable in that environment, application session form URL, requests as well. You have a this scope within components and local and arguments within functions. Even more, look at the docs to see what I'm talking about. In terms of modules, this is how you will do additional features. And there is, I'm going to risk doing my Alt Tab here, which is acting wonky for me. I'll just hit escape, why not? We'll go into the BoxLang docs real quick and show you this. Yeah, this feels really pressed down. I'll pick a better resolution next time. Y'all tell me if this gets too crazy. But if we go into modules, and like I said, they added a couple of these last week, but I won't read this off the screen, but they have an AI wrapper. They have a CSRF module. They have multiple modules for all the database stuff under JDBC. So if you're doing anything with SQL Server, MySQL, etc., you'll grab that. Mail, PDF, Markdown. By the way, the modules that have the plus in them, those are the ones that are commercial. And again, if you feel like you can write your own LDAP code, you are absolutely welcome to do so. They're not going to stop you from doing that. But if you want one just done, then that is your option as well. All right. And again, I apologize. I always hate when people use PowerPoint and they keep turning off the screen and etc. But I'm learning this Mac. So in terms of the different files that you can work with BoxLang, you saw me use a BXM file. There's three different kinds. BXS for scripting, and script files can include tag islands, so you can include tags within it. BXM for a tag-based metaphor, but you can include script in there, so you can mix it up. And for your classes, which will be your OO type stuff, that is where you would use a BX file instead. So let's look at Hello World again, and I'll go into my code here. So you saw the tag-based one right there. Using bx : to execute a particular tag, set a variable. Bx output is basically how I say look inside of this string for variables. So if I had a non-variable thing, like a period, that's going to be ignored, whereas the pound is going to be evaluated by BoxLang for a variable. So again, from the Cold Fusion world, we're totally used to this. Outside of Cold Fusion and BoxLang, you have to use something extra to make this work. The script version, I got a little bit more fancier where I used a couple of Lambda functions to write to the terminal in either green or red. So write red is a function, write green is a function using some terminal codes, and I'm using println to read out to it. And if we run BoxLang hello world bxs, we'll see hello world. Finally, the class. I have one function, main. If I run this class from the CLI, main will automatically be run. And we'll talk a bit more about the CLI and the arguments and all that. But if I just run BoxLang hello world.bx, That main function was automatically run, and I did not have any arguments, but I'll add one, name equals Ray. And you can see it actually recognized what the arguments were. And there's a nicer way of doing this that you'll see in a minute. So speaking of working at the CLI, BoxLang has multiple functions that make writing CLI tools easier. You have the ability to get all the arguments of what was passed in. You have an interactive function, CLI read, that will actually let you prompt for input, as well as CLI exit, which should actually just exit the application currently. You also get a variable under the server scope of all the arguments that were passed, and you can use that. You can work with positionals or options. So in that last example I did kind of quickly, I did, I think name equals Ray. So the first argument was name. Options are a slightly different syntax, and you'll see an example of that coming really soon. I mentioned for classes, main is automatically run. And in terms of options, if you do certain things, BoxLang will interpret it a certain way. So if I do dash dash be cool, I'll get an argument be cool that's automatically set to true. If I do dash dash option equals X, I'll get access to the variable option with the value X. And again, from the screen, you can see we have shorter options, including a way to negate those arguments as well. I do build CLI tools. They're almost always for me. So I don't typically use options like this, but I recognize that I'm in the minority, and I think most CLI tools actually do this. You can do what you want, essentially. So I have a bunch of examples here, and we'll just walk through them one by one. So CLI1.bx, this is a class-based one. And basically what I'm saying is if you don't pass a name, so if the argument length was 0, I'm going to prompt you for that. Otherwise, I'll get it from the CLI and then just say hello. And if we run this, CLI1.bx, tell me your name. I'm Ray. Hello, Ray. If I run it again and just say Raymundo, I type out that's all right. It works that way. In a script-based way, I can just get the arguments. So if I run CLI1.bxs, I should get nothing, but it does return a structure in terms of what did you pass positionally wise and what did you pass options. And we could get crazy here. I could say name equals Ray, and it comes up as positional, age equals 52, and there's just one more positional argument. Now, if I want to actually work with that, I have to start going over the array and parsing. If I want to try an option, last name equals Camden, we'll see that's parsed for me and comes in the options area. What you use will be based on whatever you're building. Just going to keep, building on top of this. So like I say in the comment here, positionals options are up to you. Like I said, if you want to use positionals, you have to do your own parsing. So this is an example here where I look at all the positional arguments and I split it on the equal because it's X equals Y down there. And I look at to see the first part is name, and then that gives me my name. So if I run CLI2 like that, I didn't pass it. So I'll try it again. Name equals foo. And it picked it up. If I don't pass name equals foo, that logic that looked for it failed. Keep on building on this. In this case, I'm actually looking for the option. So for this particular CLI tool, I'm saying you have to do it that way. So if we run 3, and I do dash name equals Ray, it's going to pick up on it. If I don't do it, or if I just do something else, it's going to recognize I didn't pass that as an option. One more example. I don't even know why oh, there was a reason, I believe, why I built this demo. I'm just going to skip it and go on to the next one. If you do positional, you do have to watch out for, let's see, we will do Ray. All right, so it picked up the first argument as a positional. If I did Ray Camden, it's only going to find the first one. So I need to make sure I do something like this instead. This issue would also apply to using the options version as well. This is not a BoxLangism. Pretty much any CLI tool where you have an argument that that has spaces or a special character, you're going to have to quote it. Same thing applies here as well. Slightly more advanced example. I have a class here called Dad Joke, and it's a wrapper to the ICANN Dad Joke API. And in my main function, what I do is I'm going to look to see if I'm passing a search string. If not, I'm just going to hit the API. If I am, the API supports a particular search. And then I'm just going to return it. And I mentioned that kind of weird. For you CF people, this won't be weird, but this is an example of doing an HTTP call. It does have the space name equals value set of arguments, and then a bracket for child tags. We'll run this BoxLang dad joke, and we'll get a dad joke, and it's awesome. And if I pass a search string, I'll pass cats, and return the joke that was based on cats. So pretty darn easy, I think. And by the way, we're a small group, so if y'all have questions, absolutely stop me. In terms of building for serverless, it's a bit more complex. They currently only support AWS Lambda, but I know for a fact they're looking at Azure and more platforms after that. You can use a GitHub repository as your template, and this repository comes with everything. It comes with unit tests, it comes with GitHub Actions, and so forth, such that you can take it and use it as your starting point. And really, it does pretty much everything that you would need to do, including managing the events coming and so forth. When working with Lambda, you can upload a zip file, and their template actually has I believe, a Maven utility to generate the zip, or just put it in GitHub, and the GitHub Actions are going to do what you need for it. They recently added some URL routing support to it, which is pretty neat. So they're adding more functionality on top of it. But basically, you make a new repo based on that template. You edit your settings. You create your Lambda on the AWS side, and don't screw up your settings. Read the docs, do it carefully. You work on your code. You hopefully write unit tests to confirm. But they've also, when I first started doing this, the only way to test locally was via unit tests. They've recently added new functionality to make it simpler to test locally, which makes the process go a little bit quicker. You git commit and you wait, and that wait is the GitHub Actions that are handling bundling things up and deploying to AWS. Last time I tested this, it was approximately about a 5-minute process. So I'm happy that they've made it easier to test locally. The code will use classes once again, but you're writing it in BoxLang. So you get access to the Lambda event that comes in, the Lambda context, and you can create a response object like you can see on screen here. You can also just return a simple value, and BoxLang handles it for you. It returns what Lambda wants, which is really, really nice. You can actually supply multiple methods within your main class and use a header in your function call to specify which one to send, and that is the x-bx- function. I mentioned a few minutes ago that they added URL rerouting to make this a bit more verbose and more powerful. So you have more options than just dropping everything in one giant class, which is nice. So I'm going to show you an example code. Where is my Lambda? There we go. And I'll make this a little bit smaller. So I basically built a Lambda that wrapped the Pirate Weather API. So it's hitting that URL, it's getting my key from, I forget where I'm getting my key from. I'm pretty sure I made it a secret. But I get a body in that includes an address. I call Pirate Weather, get the value back, and send it to them. And I tested this yesterday in Postman, and hopefully it still works. Zoom, I'm gonna need you to move out of the way. There we go. And Zoom, I'm gonna want you to move again if you don't mind. There we go. All right, so let me just, oh, that's much better. I don't need to see my face so much. Uh, this is the response. That took about 5 or so. It took 8 seconds. That was a cold start. If I run it again, 490 milliseconds. So a heck of a lot faster, which is nice. I don't know why you maximize screen, but there we go. I haven't touched this Lambda in a while, and like I said, they have done things to make it even better and easier to test. So check the docs to see more. In terms of working with web apps, this is baked in. Like I said, from ColdFusion, we're used to it. From Node and Python, I appreciate how much is baked in. You get application and session management rolled in automatically. You don't have to add anything. So if your web app needs to cache anything, or if you want to have data tied to a particular user and their session, you can do that baked in. You get lifecycle events. So you know when the application is starting, you know when a session is beginning or ending, and so forth. File-based routing. Again, this is not just ColdFusion, but any of the old web apps like ColdFusion, PHP, etc. You were used to this. Under webroot, if you put cat.php or cat.cfm, you can request that from the browser. Again, outside of that world in Node and Python, you needed something on top of that to support it. BoxLang has this built in. Automatic parsing of URL and form handling and handling file uploads, all that is baked in. And if you use the class structure in a web app, you can automatically build APIs. You essentially take a method, you mark it as remote, and you have an API. It's as simple as that. So to define a web app, you will add a application.bx to the root of your app. That'd be the top level folder. This is a class as well. BoxLang automatically searches for this file whenever you make a web request. This is run on every single request, so you want to make sure you don't have anything that's super slow or blocking on the request level. In terms of events, you know when the application starts and ends. You know when a session starts and ends. You know when a request starts and ends. You know when a request is made for a class, for example. You also get event handlers for errors, for aborts being thrown, missing templates, and so forth. All this is baked in, and you can use it if you want. In terms of running, you can use command box. I really, really like Mini Server. It's incredibly powerful, lightweight server that you just get out of the box, and also has things like debugging support, as well as where was it going? Oh, you also get URL rewrite support as well, with custom logic, and Docker as well. I don't use Docker much, but it is what it is. So I have a stupid simple web app that is a grand total of like 2 files in web 1. So I have an application.bx. I've given it a name. I've turned on session management, and I'm noting when the application starts. I'm also making a note of when your session starts and doing things like keeping a little hit counter of every time that you load a particular page. I also have support for a missing template error, and I essentially just print a terminal and then relocate you. My home page is just going to be a couple of things, but I'm going to show a couple of interesting points. Components are how you do custom tags. It's one way to do extensibility. I have built a simple layout custom tag where I know the beginning and end of my execution, and I'm using a bootstrap template. This lets me wrap a page in a layout. There's other ways of doing that as well, but that's the easiest way. And then I have a second page just for the heck of it that shows a form post that posts to itself. For me to actually run this, I'm going to go in Web 1. I'm going to do BoxLang mini server. And if you read my blog, you know that I mentioned the debug flag. This will make any errors in your templates be a lot more verbose. So we'll turn this on and we'll open this up. And there is my application. You can see, I know when the application started, which was, about 2 seconds or so ago. I know my current session, if I open this up in like Firefox, it'd be new values. Note that in my code, go back to the on session start, I put a comment how while I didn't need session not started, that's because I found out randomly that they have a time created value already baked in. So if you want to know how long a particular session has been active, you can do it, as well as knowing when their last visit is, which should be the second the page executed. And I am keeping track of how many pages I hit. So if I go back and forth, it's now up to 3. Basic form processing. If I submit this, I can see a form scope, which is one of the variable scopes, and I could see the values that I passed in. And if I actually pick some stuff, there we go. We could see that. So last thing I'll show here is requesting a file that doesn't exist. Remember, my application.bx had an onMissingTemplate event handler that basically logged it, and I should see it in terminal. There you go. Tried to load, some blah, 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 blah. And then it redirected. So I could have done something nicer there, like log to a database, what the missing templates are, because maybe I need to add that to my system of some sort. But incredibly lightweight application. You could definitely do a heck of a lot more. Like I mentioned, BoxLang mini server also supports dynamic rewrites. So at the command line, I could tell BoxLang mini server, this is a template that I want you to use for URL rewriting, and it allows me to do any type of custom logic that I want to do. So I'm building a blog and I want /year/month/day/slug. I can look for that and write my own custom logic to look up a blog post based on that, and then load the right value. So it's not really just like for playing around with. BoxLang mini server is pretty darn nice. So talked about modules. This is the system by which you add features. It helps keep BoxLang small. I showed you the list earlier, and it's growing. I think the last one they added was charting. If you read my blog, I have a lot of feelings about charting in server-side languages. I'm not a fan of it, but I do plan on checking it out because I'm curious to see what they built. It is incredibly flexible, like scary, such that modules can actually add new functions to the language. It could add new components, new custom tags that you can use. It could add new classes that you could import. It could add new jars to make them available. It could create new JDBC drivers, and it could also do interceptors. Modules are stupid powerful. If you were at Into the Box, Brad Wood did an hour-long talk on just this topic. And honestly, I think he could have done a 3 or 4 hour talk on it. But it's a lovely, lovely feature. Oh, you can also create new variable scopes. I've not gotten that to work yet, but I've been told it's possible. So I'm going to show you an example of this. Just kind of show you what it looks like, kind of build one by hand. Let's close some files here so we could focus. Turn off the web server. Turn off the web server. There we go. All right, so I have a folder called module demo. And in there, I have a BXS file where I am calling a function called meow. Meow is not part of BoxLang. I added it via module. The way I did that is I have a BoxLang_modules folder that makes it specific to this particular application. You can also do server-wide modules. And under that, I added a folder called cat. So that's a top-level folder for my particular module. All modules need a module config.bx, which is a class that has methods that you could use to handle various events. So if your module needs to do things when it's starting up or when it's stopping, you can write custom logic. In this case, all I'm doing is just printing out the terminal. In my particular module, this is not required, but mine adds a new function to the language. I put that in a folder called BIFs. I called it meow.bx, and literally I just write my new function as a class within an invoke method. I do get certain things pushed into this class where if I need to look at the BoxLang runtime as a whole, I can do that. For a simple function, you won't need to worry about that. But in this case, I'm just going to log and return a message. And if I run this, and if you remember, get back to my index, I'm just calling it like a built-in function. That was module demo. We're going to BoxLang index.bxs, and I will get all that debug data. So you can see configure cat, that was the module being configured and loaded. I could see my BIF running and the onload as well. If I was running this as a web app, that would only happen one time because the module would be loaded. It wouldn't need to be reloaded again. But this is stupid simple. You can definitely get a lot more complex with your modules, and most modules will certainly do a lot more than that. Carrying on. Oh, and speaking of, on my blog, I do have an example of a module that adds something like ColdFusion's debug output to BoxLang itself. So you can check out my blog for that. In terms of databases, this is all available via modules. I mentioned that. All the big ones are supported. I think only Redis is not really a database either, I think. It's more of a caching system. But these are all free and open source. I typoed SQLite there. And basically, it's install BX module and then BX dash the particular one you're loading. Once you have that, you can define a data source. Again, this is a ColdFusion crowd. You're used to this, but it allows you to define how you connect to your database. Like ColdFusion, you could do it inline. You could do it in your application.bx. You could even do it at the server level if that makes sense for you. But you have multiple options of doing it. Once you've done that, you can run query execute. You can run BX query. You have transaction support if you want to be sure you're talking to your database the correct way. And when you get that result back, you have a nice loop construct to work with that result. You also have stored procedure support. I never write stored procedures, but I'm working at a contract job now where that's all they do. So I've been using a lot of stored procedures. You also have DB info, where if you need to introspect a database, you can do that. And you can also create virtual queries using Query New. And that's really handy where you're building a web app, for example, and you know you're going to have a database, but you don't have it yet. You can use Query New to mock that information and then replace it with a real database call later. So I'm going to show some examples here, and I stole some data from my buddy Scott Strohs. And let me run this, let me load my credentials. So I have my MySQL data all in environment variables. This is one way, the primary way that you can read from the environment in BoxLang. So I'm basically getting my host, my port, my username and password, and just using query execute to run it. Again, in the ColdFusion world, you can specify a default data source where you don't have to tell the language which to use. BoxLang supports that as well. And I just iterate over the results to get them out. And it's just a bunch of users. Slightly more advanced, if you want to do bound parameters, it's the second argument you pass to query execute. I won't run this because it's just going to filter the results to one person. Just want to show the syntax. And lastly, you can modify a bit how the results return. So for example, If you don't want a query object, if you want an array of structs, you can simply pass return type array. And you can also take an existing query object and use a member function to turn it to an array of structs and also turn it to JSON as well. This is going to be like a lot of stuff output, but I will open this up a bit more. This is the last one, and you can see it is an array of structs. It's in JSON format. It's all quoted, but relatively direct. If it's confusing, let me know. So some last examples. This is the fun part. Let me run you some code first. So I have a little command line script here that's going to hit a bunch of RSS feeds. It's going to call a function called get RSS. And by the way, I have built a proper BoxLang feed module. This is kind of just pretending the parts are RSS, but I have a much better one. This is going to get the RSS. And what I did was I basically said, take each of those URLs and grab the RSS feed and then just add it to a big array. So I'm building a little aggregator, and I'm going to run this twice. Well, it's going to run twice. And based on the thread on the file name, you can kind of guess what's going to happen. So right now, it's hitting those 10 or so different RSS feeds. It's doing a network call sequentially and getting it back. And you see, it took 7 seconds. But then it ran again, and it took 2 seconds. That's like 20% of the original time. How did I do that? Well, this was the original simple array.each syntax. If I literally add a second argument to that, I get threading. The 20 at the end gives me like a limit to how many threads are created. But to get, 4x performance, I had to write about 6 characters of code. Now, obviously, this can be a foot gun. You can't always use this. In my case, as a blog aggregator, it didn't really matter what order the entries came back. I was trying to get them all in and work with them. So that always won't be applicable. But when it is incredibly quick to use. Another example I'll show that shows some Java integration. This is Markdown support, and I have a jar in here from FlexMark. And because BoxLang makes it easy to import jars, all I got to do is create an instance of that, a Java instance of it, and I built a function that wrapped the Markdown support. BoxLang now has a Markdown module where you can skip all this and then just install it. This is one example where I use create object. Another one is just using an import statement as instead. And I built like a fake application using BX application and specified this is where you'll find the jar. So this is just showing a different syntax of doing it. PDF support, I've spent a lot of my lifetime working with PDFs. So they have a PDF module that literally allows you to spit out PDFs by just wrapping HTML and your code with BX document. And again, if coming from Cold Fusion, you're used to this, but BoxLang has it as well. I won't run this, but I will show you. It does work. It does output dynamic PDFs. And there you go. So there's one for Brian Rinaldi, one for Raymond Camden. And this was all done via the PDF module and a few lines of code. I mentioned that there's tag island support. Now, I'm not a fan of it, but if you're building a script-based system and you need to use some HTML, it actually works nice. And you can see an example of that here where this is like the one case where I do like using a tag island because it lets me to write something inside a greater script block that'd be a real pain to do otherwise. So I like that a lot. Last example, I won't bother running this as well, but I built a wrapper to Cloudflare's screen share API where I can literally at the CLI use BoxLang and say, hey, give me a screenshot of this URL. It was being a little bit flaky earlier. Now it's Cloudflare, not not BoxLang, but we will try. I'll try and do CNN.com. I don't think it ever worked. It did not. So let's see if Cloudflare is working better now. It's creating a screenshot and saved it. By the way, another thing that's built into BoxLang is, where is it? Right here, a Slugify function. I like that. That's built in. And this is the current page of CNN. And I clicked that with trepidation because who knows what's going on. I also did my blog as well. And by the way, that's tiny. Cloudflare's API is actually very versatile, and I could have made BoxLang work with it a little bit better. But those are the examples I wanted to show. And finally, so resources. So there are a lot of docs, and they're growing. I do some work on the docs. I clean stuff up and write things when things are a little bit unclear. One of the things that's been kind of like my religious tenet for working with BoxLang and the Ortus folks is that I ensure there's never a preconceived notion of knowing Cold Fusion or any of the Ortus products. My assumption is that you heard of BoxLang, you came in, and you know nothing else. And I've had to sometimes modify the docs because they were kind of leaning on that assumption. They do have forums and Slack. It's actually the links to that are not in the navigation. They're only on the first page of the docs. I will say the Slack it's not very active, but you can absolutely get a quick answer on their Slack. Finally, my blog has a bunch of BoxLang posts, and actually not finally, you could play with BoxLang in your browser. So you could try out boxlang.io. It's like CodePen. And again, I apologize, my resolution's kind of wonky. But if you run this, you can actually see the output, and you can play with stuff, and you can actually copy a link and share it. A little bit of a warning on this. They don't automatically save. So if your browser restarts, for example, due to an update, you will lose your code. So do quick testing here. And if you want to save it in some way, hit that copy link. And this gives you like a long, ugly URL that you could bookmark and use again to get the existing code back. All right. So I would do the last slide, but the last slide is literally just questions. Let me actually escape out of there. And y'all tell me if you have any questions or anything that I can show.
So I guess from my side, I know when they first introduced BoxLang, it was very intertwined with command box. I guess I've just been kind of perusing some of the docs recently, and it seems like that's not as much the case anymore. Is that true?
Yes and no. This is where I have my opinion, right? And the Ortus folks have their opinion, and they're the boss. So they want to make it tighter. So for example, the command line to install modules, install-bx-module, they want to dump that and just use the box CLI for that. So not the BoxLang CLI, but the box CLI. So you will get, I think, a tighter connection to command box in the future. I don't believe you'll need to learn bot. Like if I have anything to say about it, you'll just have to do the basic install and that's it. So I actually do think you're going to see a tighter connection to it going further. I want to make sure it's done right. Like I don't work for Ortus per se, but it's my belief that we should be careful in that regard. That's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but does that help at all?
Yeah, I guess that's one of the things that kind of prevented me from playing with it earlier. Command box is extremely opinionated in how it works, how your system is set up, and things like that. And if you're not in that really narrow definition of how they want to have things work, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm happy to see that you can actually do it without it at the moment, and I'm hoping that stays true.
Yeah, no, and like I said, so if they dump, for example, the install-bx-module CLI and say you will use Box to install modules, I will continue to come at it from a perspective of I don't care about command box. This should be easy. Don't make me learn that. I will fight for the users in that regard, in my personal opinion, is that how it should be.
Okay. Yeah, I guess yeah, I see that they've also recently started posting some Docker images too that don't, because it used to be that I feel like again it was intertwined, like even in the Docker space, really with command box. So I'm seeing that they have separate ones there too. So that's useful too.
Yeah.
I did want to comment. I thought that their idea for CF admin is great, and the reason I say that is because I think in the last 10 years I suggested it both to Adobe and to Lucy that that's how it ought to be done. It ought to be a desktop app that eliminates. They wanted to eliminate it, but people didn't want it to go away because it is awfully handy, and I just make it a desktop app.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe they'll set a trend for the other two.
So you're talking about like you want to use BoxLang like to build desktop apps or as a desktop app?
No, I think they're on the right thing with what you said. They're coming out with one,
Hmm.
and I think the others should follow it. I think that's the way it should be. It should be on your desktop.
Yeah, so to be clear, like my understanding, the admin is going to be a desktop app,
Yeah,
and they want to document also how you make your own desktop apps in BoxLang as well via Electron.
I guess you could make it for Lucy or something if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, if I had to guess, so Electron's all JavaScript, so I'm assuming that they're going to do a Java to JavaScript type layer of some sort. Hopefully, that won't impact the size too much, but BoxLang itself is tiny, so we'll see.
Yeah, I worked with Electron when it first came out, and it was kind of clunky, but I think it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah, there's still. I've always been, web platform, um, but I take a I take a pause now to say like, what are you doing first? Like, I would not build a powerful like Adobe Premiere clone in the web. Although you can get pretty darn close to it. Actually, it's kind of shocking how close you can get to it. So I'm excited to see what they do with Electron. I'll be curious to see when you generate like a .exe or a .dmg. I want to see what that size is like, and what happens when you install it on a Virgin system that doesn't have JVM or anything like that. Like, does a JVM make it huge, or will the Electron apps require a JVM to run? We'll see.
Yeah, I think that the box languages gives the CF world, I guess, a chance to do things that would be difficult, if not impossible, in CF. You would just go to Java to do it or whatever, and this looks like conceivably it'd be easier than taking the jump to Java. I took a Java class here locally once, and I wanted to learn Java. I didn't want to be great at it, but I wanted to understand it. And the guy said he's going to have us complete Java programmers by the time. They had one meeting. It took 3 hours to get everybody to install Java successfully on their machines. And the guy was so frustrated, he never came back, never had another class.
Oh, wow. Yeah, one thing is you don't have no Java to use it. So when I first built my Markdown code, I found the jar and I looked at their Java docs, and using it in BoxLang was pretty easy. And to be fair, I find that in ColdFusion as well. If you're doing a couple methods and that's it, it's not hard to do. But I appreciate that I don't have to write Java itself. I don't want to write Java.
Yeah, I just want to have a better understanding of what was possible and what the most popular languages were. That's the whole reason I was taking the class. It didn't cost me anything. I just wanted to offer it to the community. This was before COVID, and
Yeah.
never got back to it. So you write 3 times as much code minimum.
Yeah, apparently, like I've seen some recent stuff in the Java world, and like they're working to make that a lot slimmer. Like the Hello world, which was class and static and all that. from what I've seen, they've made it like a third of that. Like they've recognized correct and simpler. So, I've only seen like a presentation talking about it at a keynote, and I was like, oh, that's cool. If I ever have to learn Java later on, that will make it easier. But I still have not had to learn Java, so I'm not going to worry about it.
I think there's a place for Java. We had a local large insurance company that was all CF and they went all Java and then they end up coming back. And now they're like 50-50. There's just too many small apps that took too long to write. And the justification for using Java just wasn't there. They didn't have millions of people on it. It was an internal application. And now you have to know both languages to be able to work there. So Randy, I see you were highlighting some of this stuff when he was going with the stars, and you got any questions?
No, I know he showed the results of like the PDF. That's my interest and concern. I don't know how extensive BoxLang will be as far as like dynamically populating and altering like PDFs. I know he gave like a basic example. We did it all the time with the CF document and CF PDF tag, and boom, voila, this is what you got. This is what it's gonna get. I just wanted to know how far and deep. I noticed also a PDF didn't have a plus next to it, so it wasn't a paid option. That's good. I don't know if you can elaborate more on that, Ray.
So it's only PDF creation. You don't have like split and merge and stuff like that. So the CF PDF tag from ColdFusion, you don't have that. You basically have the CF document tag from ColdFusion. I don't know if they're planning on any manipulation. Obviously, there's APIs out there from Adobe and other companies to do that. But right now, it's just generating PDF documents.
Gotcha. Yep, that's what I wanted to know there, Ray.
And by the way, I'm trying to get my GitHub up to date, so in case y'all clone this immediately, uh, you will have it. But ask away, please, while I type. I'm just cleaning some stuff up.
Is Joe still on here? If he has any questions, I might as well ask him. Sometimes you have to ask people and get them to join the community.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I'm just here as a budding CF developer, just trying to take it all in. So I don't think I have any questions as of now. I don't know that I know enough to ask.
That's all right. That's all right. He was more on the BoxLang part of it than the CF part of it in this particular meeting, but we'll have plenty of future meetings on ColdFusion.
So Ray, while you're kind of going through all that, do you know if they've implemented the like REST endpoint or those types of things yet?
Yeah, if you mean like the high level REST framework that ColdFusion had, no. But if you just mean a class under webroot with access equals remote, yeah, that works.
Okay, but they don't have like, so do you know if that's something that they're talking about, or if they have any like solution for that, like for API endpoints or anything?
That I don't know about.
Do you know if they've included OAuth?
No, so it's not baked in. I know Coldbox has an OAuth module. I've been using it at this other contract job. I don't know if it works under BoxLang with the ColdFusion compatibility. I imagine it does. I have not done that because all of my BoxLang work has been away from ColdFusion. Like I did not want to touch ColdFusion when I was using BoxLang.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Ray while he's here?
And the repo is up to date in 2 more seconds or so.
Got a question for you, Ray. If you said you were using a Windows laptop and yours broke down and you're like, I'm gonna now jump to Mac OS. Weren't you Mac before Windows, or just curious?
Yeah, I was actually. I was Mac up until 7 or 8 years ago when Microsoft really started doing a lot more push for developers with their like Surface hardware line, the open source stuff, Visual Studio Code, Terminal, and all that. I got real excited. I don't hate Windows. I was very upset with this laptop. It went through cycles of being bad, and it kind of enraged me. I'm under enough stress now trying to find a job. I don't leave my laptop with, and I called the company. They're like, yeah, we'll send you a box. You can send it in. We'll fix it. I don't doubt that they would be able to fix it, but I'd be 2 weeks without earning income. I can't do that.
Understand, definitely. Just wondering. I always like to hear people's stories. Why this? Why that?
I figured it's time to change back. So even at my last couple of jobs, I've had a Mac laptop and a Windows machine. So I've had both in my environment. So it's not completely new, um, but it's a bit of a refresher.
Gotcha.
Well, that's good. I want to thank you, Ray. I say you gave us an awful lot to think about, kind of a deep dive here, and appreciate it.
You are most welcome, and if you invite me again, we will sync up on the time zone, I promise.
Definitely, definitely look forward to it.
I got one last one in there, Rick. I was looking back at my notes and everything. I did a screen grab and he said BoxLang, and it kind of went along the lines of could replace Cold Fusion. Is there some type of like converter application or something that takes, or does it just run Cold Fusion code?
It is the module, the Compact CFML. There you go. Allows you to run Adobe Cold Fusion or Lucy. I haven't personally used it, but I know a lot of people have. And then once you do, you can run your Cold Fusion app without rewriting your code.
But still, I'm gonna have problems if I'm doing things with like PDFs that BoxLang doesn't support. It would,
Correct.
I assume, just fail.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much they document that. Uh, yeah, they don't, but yeah, CF PDF would not come over.
Gotcha. So it runs my native Cold Fusion code just on top of BoxLang, the
Mhm.
things that it does support.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, as far as the you said you obviously with CF you can drop down to Java. How compatible is it to go back and forth if you're running this Compat CFL module to drop down and do something in Box language that calls this call from CF or back and forth or
So my assumption is that anybody using this module, they have an application that's Cold Fusion. They're not going to mix and match. It's just,
okay.
oh, I need to get this running. I don't want to be on ACF or Lucy. I want this to run in the BoxLang, and they're going to do it. I don't know what happens if you put a BoxLang file in there as well. I assume it just works. I haven't tested it myself, but like I would not recommend that for sure. If that makes sense.
Yep. That's just a question I wanted answered when I saw it out there. Well, again, thank you very much, Ray. You're welcome to hang around. We chat or if you got things to go to.
I am just going to go eat dinner. I was going to eat a little while ago when I thought I was presenting at 7. So I'm going to go eat.
Okay. Well, listen, again, thank you very much for the presentation. Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.